We are back on the Everton Byline. It's episode number 39. I am your host, Mac Jones. I'm joined as ever by Paddy Boylan. Paddy, how are you doing?
Good, yes. Saturday was a very long day. I think I left the flat at around 7:15 and got back at about 8:30. So a good 13 and a bit hour day all in. Would have been nice if Everton had delivered something in the middle to make the rest of the day a bit more palatable. But I think we know by now that Everton don't get wins. They don't get good positive results at Stamford Bridge. So maybe that was asking for a bit too much. I mean, I spent most of yesterday recovering from the long day, which makes me sound like an old man.
Well, my heart bleeds for you, someone who ran a marathon yesterday and did all that as well on Saturday that you did. So, must have been tough. Must have been tough for that. But in all seriousness, thanks to everyone who donated to that over the weekend. And a lot of people who donated £18.78, Paddy, which is very Everton-y, isn't it, in that sense? I was waiting for a red to donate £19.95 as like a sort of dig, but we're still waiting for that. But I'm sure the red listeners out there, if you want to donate, it's all for a good cause. We'll take the £19.95. But I'm pretty exhausted today, to be honest. So a bit concerned to hear that you're knackered too. I was hoping you were going to carry me through a little bit today. But in all seriousness, thanks to everyone who donated. It was absolutely brutal in London yesterday in that heat. So good to see the donations still coming in for all the hay. I really, really appreciate it. So I'll stick the link in the show again for this week, and then you'll never hear me have to talk about it again, which I'm sure a lot of people will be thankful for. Yeah. So you want to donate, the links in the description, and cheers for all the support. It was absolutely amazing day, albeit a very, very difficult one. But we were in the same situation on Saturday. Paddy usually comes to these podcasts talking from. I've been in the stands at Goodison or watching on TV with the away games, but when in London, I decided to go and go in the press box for the Echo at Stamford Bridge. Surprised they accepted the request, to be honest, and it was interesting. I've not been in the press box for ages and ages and ages, so it was quite interesting. I've never been in Stamford Bridge before, and it was quite interesting to sort of get back in amongst it all and to see how it's all working all these years on. To look at the disappointment on a lot of the reporters' faces when they were talking about how the food would have been a lot better if it was an afternoon or evening game, but because it was an early one, it was you have such hard lives, you guys, getting free food wherever you go and stuff like that. But it was interesting. We're going to get onto this a little bit more, but for people who don't know much about this at all, it's just a bit of a weird situation where you walk in there and immediately you saw Andy Townsend sat there having his breakfast and sausage butty in one corner, and then Jules Breach from TNT Sport was in the other corner getting some last bits of makeup put on. And then you've got
for a while.
Yeah, and then Michael Brown was loitering around. You've got all the Everton staff there. And obviously a lot of reporters as well. So the very weird places. I think a lot of people think press rooms just where all the written press go, but it is like everyone. And obviously on Saturday we had the really interesting dynamic of Enzo Maresca was in the press box with us as well, wasn't he? And he was sat say the equivalent of where people who, when you go to the match, a row behind me and 4 or 5 seats to the left. And he actually realised he was there when Joe pointed it out, but he was pretty quiet and reserved throughout the whole thing, to be honest. But but a bit of a weird dynamic of the manager being in there. Have you ever had that before, where another manager sat in such close proximity to the press?
No, I mean what we often get in the press box is club media, opposition club media. Sometimes you'll have analysts from both clubs who are wanting a different vantage point of the game. I mean, traditionally, look at Goodison Park. The press box is kind of in the middle of the main stand. So it's a really good view to see everything that's going on. The dugout's low down. It's almost like ground level, isn't it? Quite hard to see everything. What we also get quite a lot of, and particularly home and away, is Charlie Adam. Charlie Adam is in there quite a lot as well. So I was a little bit surprised he wasn't on this occasion, or certainly not that I saw. I mean, occasionally, I didn't hear much from Maresca, but occasionally his assistant, who I'm led to believe was some form of kit man, was absolutely bellowing instructions down towards the Chelsea dugout. And one of the things I like about Stamford Bridge is that we are basically just above the two technical areas, so you can see what's being said. You can get a handle on kind of the emotions, the gestures, all that kind of stuff. I mean, people by now will have read loads on the game, I'm sure, and loads of comments on how Moyes was in terms of his demeanour, and that's because we've got brilliant access to see just about everything that he's doing during the game. I mean, very early on, Beto's pulled by Levi Colwell on the touchline, and Moyes goes absolutely mad at the fourth official. Everton get the foul, but he goes absolutely mad at the length of time I think it's taken. Mark Cucurella has a bit of a moan, and then Moyes kind of shoos him away and gestures to tell him to shush. And then he has another chat with the fourth official. It's still pretty frustrated and effectively goes to sit back down. So that kind of colour, I suppose, as we call it in the journalism world, is really quite interesting for these pieces. Gives you an insight into the characters and the kind of the emotions on the day. And yeah, it wasn't a good performance by Everton. I mean, kind of a pitch side seat to watch Chelsea steamroller them for a good 40 odd minutes. And I think probably there were some tactical lessons for Everton to learn from all of that. But I came away from the game feeling that if Everton had an ounce more quality in attack, they'd have almost certainly taken something. It felt like Chelsea were really kind of teetering in the last half an hour or so, allowing Everton into the game. And Everton did start belatedly creating some chances. So it kind of another one of those moments, like those nearly moments here. And we've had several of them with the City game as well over the past few weeks, where Everton have been well in these games against very good opposition, but just haven't been able to get the job done. And I suppose the big takeaway is they need more quality in those attacking areas if they're going to do anything.
Yeah, just like finally on the press box thing, and when you were talking about it then, it like just reminded me of another analogy someone used about. Can't remember where I heard it, so apologies to whoever did say this. It was on a different. It was on a cricket podcast, sort of talking about how the cricket, when you look at it from far away, is a bit like looking at sheep on a mountainside or on a hillside, where it looks quite picturesque and all very nice and fluffy and that kind of stuff. But when you get really close up to one of those sheep or a few of those sheep, like you see all like the tats in the hair and like the scuffs on like if they've got antlers or like all these like raw like grotty sort of things. And it was a bit like that on Saturday, because I usually sit in the lower Gladys Street at like row EE, so I'm like quite far back from it. And like I've never really had that kind of perspective of being like right above the press box before, sorry, right above the dugouts before, and like seeing, like you said, all those little interactions, which you think from like a journalistic perspective are like gold, aren't they? In terms of like hooking stuff on or like finding stuff to ask, the manager or players afterwards, and like just seeing like that, and like I said, we're gonna come on to it, and like you referenced the fact that a lot of the coverage was on Moyes, like just like little things that like I don't think you'd ever appreciate if you weren't sat there. Like just like some of his frustrations with Jacob O'Brien at times and where he was receiving the ball and moving the ball.
Jack Harrison.
Yeah, Jack Harrison was another one. Patterson was another. I mean, and the obvious example was Beto and sort of how we reacted to that. But like, it really, really hit home that like all these, like as much as like we think of it's like a game which is so tactical and so pure and all these other things at times as well. Like there's little nitty gritty bits that you don't really pick up on unless you sat right there. So yeah, I found it absolutely fascinating from that point of view. Just before we get into our three talking points from this week, Paddy, just do our usual admin. Just a reminder, we are sponsored by the Bridewell. It's going to be a heat wave this week, so one of the best places in town to sit outside and have a pint in the courtyard or outside. If you're watching us on YouTube, do hit like, do hit subscribe, do leave us a comment on anything you think we're talking about today. And the same goes for Apple and for iTunes. Or Apple and for iTunes, they're both the same thing. Apple, iTunes, or Spotify. You can leave us a rating, a review on there as well. It'd be really, really appreciated. And if you want to email us about anything in particular, it's evertonbyline@gmail.com. Cheers to everybody who has got in touch via that way as well. So, yeah, we're going to sort of start off by talking about kind of one of the themes we touched upon there, and that was the players that were kind of given chances, either starting in the game or in Jacob O'Brien's case, starting as a centre-back, and then some off the bench as well. Obviously, Chimiti came on quite early, Alcaraz came on quite early, and had enough time to sort of make an impact on the game. Did any of them really seize their opportunity, would you say, Paddy, and give the manager something realistically big to think about ahead of the game against Ipswich next week? Because it's thinking about those four in particular, it felt like a real mixed bag.
Yeah, I would agree.
In the sense that, I think you'd look at Alcaraz and say, yeah, came on and did well. I'd say O'Brien did all right, but certainly Patterson and Chimiti, players that fans want to see more of, got their opportunity and just didn't really make any kind of impact on the game, really.
Yeah, a mixed bag, I think, is fair. Moyes really wasn't happy with the first half. Felt that Chelsea played with more intensity and won a lot of the second balls. I mean, that was very evident from inside the stadium. They were just all over Everton and just seemed to be so dominant physically. I do think they outnumbered Everton in midfield as well by kind of dropping Nicholas Jackson in a little bit deeper. Then you had Cucurella and Caicedo as nominal fullbacks coming inside. So kind of overloading the midfield and giving Everton's own midfield, which was poor, too much work to do, I'd say. Moyes was happy with the substitutes. I mean, more or less across the board. He didn't single anybody out, but he said he was pleased with the contributions from the substitutes. I thought by far the brightest spark from those on the bench was from Alcaraz. I mean, it wasn't perfect. There was still times where I felt he made the wrong decision in possession or gave the ball away when he maybe shouldn't have done. But just purely in terms of driving Everton up the pitch and I suppose creating a link between midfield and attack. I don't know about you, but in the first half, it felt like none of the departments were properly joined up. Like nobody was linking defence and midfield. And I think you saw that for the goal, where it basically just goes into Beto and then there's nobody there to pick it up. Nobody's there to link midfield and attack because Ndai wasn't quite on it and was getting clogged every time he got the ball by Caicedo. And I think what Alcaraz coming on at half-time did was it gave Everton basically a third central midfielder at times because he was playing so central in that second half. But it also gave them a carrying option from deep, which is obviously what Alcaraz does really well. And he was just a bit more confident in possession, a bit more progressive in what he was looking to do. And while he always didn't always make the right decision, I do feel as though he contributed to a much better Everton performance in that second half. So yes, I would say Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, Saturday was important symbolically and mathematically in the sense that he now cannot make the 9 Premier League starts to trigger his obligation to buy. Everton still, as we discussed on last week's show, have the option at the end of the season to make the move permanent for the same fee. But that obligation has now gone. He now cannot make 9 Premier League starts this season. I almost wonder if that means like the shackles will be off a little bit for Moyes now, because he doesn't have to be burdened by this idea that, well, if we play him this amount of times, we have to sign him regardless of what we think anyway. And he can now a little bit more assess people on merit and put them in the team regardless. I mean, that for me was a step forward for Alcaraz, and certainly Moyes' comments indicated as such after the game. Chimiti, rusty, in my opinion. It felt like he spent the second half offside when he came on. I mean, it doesn't matter which Everton striker is on the pitch, they're perennially offside. So he continued that trend. I mean, some decent stuff for him, but I felt Everton's best chance of the game was obviously the one for Beto and the other one for McNeil. And he didn't really play a role in either of those, of course. He wasn't on the pitch for the Beto one. So, I mean, for me, rusty. I mean, you're still looking for him to get more minutes, and I do hope he does in the coming weeks. Patterson will also be in rusty. This was only his second start of the season, his first at right back. I thought he had a really tough time against Noni Madueke in particular, and that was quite interesting in the sense that Chelsea usually place Madueke on the other flank, but Patterson was up 1v1 with him, and I think really struggled to match Madueke's pace, skill, and physicality. He didn't ever really get a handle on it. And I'm still kind of in the camp that thinks that Nathan Patterson's a wing back rather than a fullback, based on his qualities. And crucial distinction there is I think he's better slightly higher up the pitch when he has to do slightly less defensive stuff. So I don't think he will have advanced his claims at all. O'Brien's an interesting one in the sense that I thought he was fairly solid. But when Moyes was asked in the press conference after the game what he made of O'Brien's and Patterson's performances, he gave a one-word answer. He said, okay. And then we very quickly moved on. So I don't know what that was. And I don't know what that was about.
Whether he was constantly on O'Brien, wasn't he, in the first half? Like, he was like, I don't know. I think he wants them to come wider to get the ball and then whip it down the line quicker.
Yeah. He wanted to.
Like O'Brien was like going more central. I think it's like I don't know if it's like he just wanted to be close to Branthwaite. Like, and I think this was after we conceded as well. Maybe wanted to keep that shape a bit more compact. But like, I just don't think O'Brien was listening to him at all. He was just kind of carrying on doing what he was doing. But yeah, he wasn't happy with something that he was doing, and I think it was that.
Well, at one point he was gesturing seemingly for O'Brien to play the ball, release the ball quicker into that right-hand channel. I mean, that tactical side was pretty interesting throughout, because I mean, what Everton were doing from a lot of the goal kicks was splitting the centre-backs, and those centre-backs were very, very wide. But Nicholas Jackson was just positioning himself right in the middle of that space, and you saw it for the goal. The centre-backs are split, but Pickford doesn't play the ball to them. Instead, he goes into Beto. And as soon as the ball breaks down, it's one pass. Jackson's kind of in acres of space. So, I mean, that felt to me like a tactical failing on Everton's part. It was, if your centre-backs are going to split, they need to get the ball, and somebody in midfield needs to go and take it off them as well. They need to have passing options. But if you're going to play it into Beto, then you need Branthwaite and O'Brien narrower. I think they didn't ever quite get the balance right. And look, part of this might be no Tarkowski and a different configuration at the back. If you swap your right back and you put a different centre back in, then it is going to inevitably take some time to get up to speed. I thought, whether this was by accident or by design, and I imagine it was by design, Everton were much better in those areas in the second half. And actually, for me, I thought Jarrad Branthwaite was pretty much outstanding throughout in what he did. Really stepped up. Particularly in the second half, loads of headers, loads of interceptions. There was one brilliant clearance, which he actually wouldn't have been attributed with, from a corner where I think it's Chalobah just behind him, ready to head it into an empty net. Branthwaite flicks it, just manages to flick it over the over Chalobah and behind again for another corner, which it should have been. The officials gave Everton a goal kick, which was quite fortuitous, but I thought Branthwaite was excellent. O'Brien, solid enough. I still think we need to see a run of games with him there. But, I mean, that to me still seems like a really exciting partnership for Everton if they can start to gel and find some chemistry. I mean, two young centre-backs who, may lack experience, but they have just about everything else you would want from modern-day centre-halves. So a mixed bag is right. I mean, if we're doing a very rough tally right now, you'd say O'Brien did okay. Alcaraz advanced his claims. Patterson struggled. Who am I missing here? Chimiti didn't really impact it, but we need to see more of him. I mean, I think with Chimiti, we need to see him in those games against Ipswich and Southampton, really. We need to give him a proper go. Moyes has always spoken with him about finding the right level of opposition and the right time. So I think he's probably hinting towards using him in those matches. But it wasn't a good performance across the board, was it? I mean, 40 minutes, they were well off the pace and lucky to only be 1-0 down. Second half, they could well have got a point and maybe should have got a point, but again, it goes back to a lack of quality to capitalise on those moments. Everton don't have enough of it.
Yeah, I think the one who'll be worrying most after that is definitely Patterson. I guess certainly like with that response you said in the press conference, like it was Joe who asked the question.
Yeah,
I think he was obviously expecting a longer answer, and I think the fact that it was just like the way, if anyone's not seen it, if you go back and watch it, like just the tone he says it in as well. Like it's not an okay, and like yeah, they're okay. It's like a all right. Like it was very much dismissive. Well, let's put words in his mouth and read between the lines too much. It wasn't a good kind of okay at all. And
do you think, Matt, that was? And again, this is guesswork based on what we have. But could that have been a manager trying to protect his players? Because I mean, if he's answering on Patterson, he probably, if he's being honest, he probably has to say something along the lines of, "Well, that was a tough outing for him," and whatever else, and probably has to go into it a little bit more. Is it better to just say okay and be done with it there than to open up a potential can of worms?
I think there's ways of talking around it, isn't there? Like he could have said first game start, like if I'm being Moyes and you've asked me that question in the press conference, I'm thinking, how can I put the most positive spin possible on Nathan Patterson's performance and protecting him? I could say it was his first start right back this season. It was a tough game against Chelsea. It's positive that he got an hour in the tank. He's someone we're looking to work with. It's not going to happen. He could have said all those things, I think. And he's experienced enough as a manager to know. Like, I don't think that's by accident that he said that. And I get what you're saying, but like just sort of, being in the room and seeing it and like watching it back again, it felt like it could have been more towards O'Brien, even because, like you said, he was pissed off of him a lot during the game as well. So both of them were part of the question. So it was interesting. But yeah, I just worry for Patterson now. Like I think I said on this show and the Blue Room in general for a while. Like I think the best aspect of his game is his energy and tenacity. Like when he first came into the side and the Lampard and was doing well, like. He wasn't like amazing defensively. He wasn't amazing going forward, but he could get up and down the line and he'd make a nuisance of himself and he'd carry the ball quite well. And I just wonder with the injuries he's had, like, is he ever going to fully get that back? Like, if like the best thing about your game is your energy and your aggression and like being able to be relentless, if you're not technically great, if you're not defensively great, if you can't whip balls in and score goals, like if you're a wing back, like if you keep getting injured, and like that's a worry to me. Like we spoke a bit about it like last week, and we with Breuer and how he maybe looks like he's playing a bit like someone who has had a load of injuries and is a little bit concerned about it. I just wonder if there's a bit of that with Patterson as well. And if he's not got that to go with his baseline every week, like I don't see what else he's got really to fall back on. Like how long's he been here now? It's like 3 years he's been at Everton now. Like
well. It joined in the January window of 21-22, and at that point was pretty expensive signing compared to his age when you consider his age. And it obviously for various reasons hasn't worked out yet. I think injuries have been a large part of that, but obviously he's played under a host of different managers. I think with the injuries, what it's done is it's deprived him of a lot of football and a lot of opportunities to develop. And I think that's really quite crucial for somebody that was his age. And we almost now need to stop talking about him as a youngster because he's no longer a youngster. He's kind of almost in his mid-20s and feels like a youngster because of how little he's played, but should actually be developing and progressing. He hasn't had those opportunities through injury. So I mean, like you, I do wonder where we go from here because he's one of the only right backs under contract as it stands next season. But has Moyes seen anywhere near enough to make him the number one pick? That'd be my question, and I'm pretty sure he won't have done yet. I mean, it's tough, isn't it? Because if you take him out to the firing line next weekend against Ipswich and somebody else comes in and has a good game, you then open yourselves up to accusations that, well, you've played him against Arsenal left back and you've played him away at Chelsea, at Stamford Bridge, really tough asks. and then he has a game against Ipswich, which might be a bit more favourable to his ability and quality, and he's not got the opportunity. So it's a tough one. I mean, we did say that we want to see Moyes use these final games to learn lessons about his squad, and I still think that probably has to include Patterson to an extent. I don't think you can entirely base a judgment completely off one game, however it's gone. Same goes for a lot of the others, Committee and other members of that squad. So we need to see more. But yeah, this wasn't a great start. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Matt, I mean, I was in the mix zone while the press conference was taking place because the two once again coincided in terms of time, didn't they? I was hoping to get back in time for the press conference. So you were actually, out of the two of us, you were the one that was sat in there. So I just wanted to get your general sense. You touched on it a little bit there, but what did you make of Moyes, his demeanour, the press conference?
He looked very, very angry at that point. Like it felt like he was he was keen to get going, put it that way. And then I saw which is understandable, isn't it? You know, it's a long journey back. Like they've just been beaten. Like, would he have done all his other media before then as well?
Yes, he does a lot of media before you. Yeah.
Like I totally get all that. And I think ultimately, you know, it's like the majority of reporters in that room are there to ask about Chelsea and why is Cole Palmer not playing well and all that kind of stuff. So, but you could tell. Yeah, you could tell that he was keen to kind of get moving, and I think he was asked. Well, we're gonna come on to talk about strikers now, but he was asked about Beto, and it was sort of made clear, well, going into too much detail, that maybe we should move on from that subject because maybe you're still a little bit raw in regards to what Moyes felt about it, and like, you know, again, like we are may as well move on to the second point now, on Moyes and strikers, because. You know, maybe he was a little bit mixed in his messaging and a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of clandestine about Jake O'Brien and Patterson and what he really thought of their performances, but he was not about Beto at all. He said that he needs to secure the ball and effectively said, you know, the pass Pickford plays is a good one and he should be able to control it. Interestingly as well, Paddy, that Pickford's come out and said that Beto apologised for his mistake and stuff. Like, I don't think it warranted that. I don't think it needs him to stand up in front of the dressing room and put his hands up and say, "Listen, lads, I'm sorry," because he should have controlled the ball. But there's a lot of ways we could stop the goal before then. But
I don't think it's the only mistake in there.
Oh no, not at all. Like I don't think the pass. I've saw people having to go pick for the pass. I think the pass is fine, and I think if you're going to try and play on the counter and get the ball forward quickly, you know, I don't mind. That's part of the game. But like, it's a bad bit of play from Beto. But you know, the midfield disappears. No one closes Jackson down well enough. Like, there are other ways you could pick bones out of it. But just in regards to the strikers, like it did sort of feel with Beto, like when he was going on that run, that maybe, you know, this could solve us a bit of a headache next season if it carries on. He's not scored for a while now. You know, he was even having a spell, wasn't he, with the one-on-ones against Brentford and Wolves and against Liverpool, where he was still getting chances, and you kind of thought, you know, these goals are going to come back again soon. He's not really had chances, has he, in his last few games? He had one at the weekend, like that snapshot, but not getting the one-on-ones anymore. But you know, it draws the striker issue into focus, doesn't it, coming into the summer? And I think the way in which Moyes sort of made that pointed remark about Beto, we spoke about Breuer last week, didn't really do much to advance his cause. Like a few weeks ago, and I think this is happening with a lot of positions, like a few weeks ago, or a few weeks earlier, you could say, you know, this is playing position X is our top priority for the summer, and then a few more games go by and you go, actually, no, it's position Y, and then you go, it's position Z. Like, I was reading Twitter after the game of the weekend, and it felt like in the space of 5 minutes, I saw everyone saying that every position on the pitch was our priority for the summer. But centre forward definitely feels like one, and I think we've said previously that you know, it won't be a huge surprise if none of the four lads who are here now are at the club next summer in one capacity or another. But it feels like it's getting to the top of the list, doesn't it, striker, in regards to a centre forward? And you know, the links with Liam Delap, with that in mind, as much as he'd be tough to get, make a lot of sense, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify the bit about the four strikers, I think that some of them will still be here, but Moyes may look elsewhere when it comes to the kind of the number 9, the guy that's leading the line every single week. Purely because you look at the 4 options right now, and Calvert-Lewin's injured. Committee's still young and developing. I think the main thing for him is that he gets regular minutes, whether it's at Everton or elsewhere. Has Moyes seen enough for him to lead the line next season? I'd say probably not. At this moment in time, as talented as Committee is.
But even him, Paddy, sorry to interrupt you. I would be tempted, if they got an offer for him as well, I'd be tempted to cash in on him. Like, we're talking about a lad who's had major injuries, has not scored a goal. Yeah, like as much as it's been flashes,
yeah,
I'm probably not as high on him as a lot of people are in that sense. But if someone came in and gave Everton the chance to get the money back on, what did they pay for him? Around 10 million? Like, I think you'd have to consider that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Cleary's not proved himself, and again has had injuries. I mean, I think the one over the summer was a bitter blow for him because it did feel as though he was kind of working up some momentum, particularly with those goals against Sligo and his pre-season performances. We know Dyche liked what he saw and was looking to give him further starts. I mean, my information at the time was that had he not got injured against Sligo, he'd have started for Everton in the Coventry game the following week, in what was at that point probably about as strong as they could have gone. So that gave you an indication as to how well he was doing. But yeah, certainly there's loads of question marks over him, and they obviously remain. Beto is without a goal since the middle of February, the Man United game, and has obviously had chances. With him, I think part of the issue in recent weeks has been a lack of service as well. I mean, he's made mistakes, he's done things wrong over the last few weeks, but the team is really not creating much, is really still quite clunky in attack, particularly when you look at the first half. It's still workmanlike rather than full of guile or creative quality. So question mark over him. And then you got Breuer, who's got a £30 million option, which nobody's going to activate at the moment, and has been injured for a lot of the time. So, I mean, the links with strikers are inevitable. My understanding is that Moyes is looking at strikers, and one of those strikers is Liam Delap. The problem they're going to have with Liam Delap is that I would estimate that anything between a dozen and 20 clubs will be looking at him in the summer because his release clause is, 30 million, which is low for a striker that's done what he has this season, for a striker of his potential. There'll be clubs within that list that can offer him European football of one nature or another, something Everton can't provide. So that looks like a tough ask as well. But yeah, I do think that Everton will look at the striking department. We did a segment of a podcast on this a couple of weeks ago where we effectively said that Everton will also have to look at strikers too. And I stand by that because there are so many question marks. I'd say there are question marks over all 4 of the options. Where I want to be careful though is that, I mean, and I mentioned it there, it's not just a finishing issue. It's also like a real absence of creativity too. And I mean, the point I would make is that they need kind of reinforcement behind the striker as well. I mean, like that number 10 role, Decore's still there, and Alcaraz is playing off the left. And Dye's a good player and should be part of the next chapter. But you go through the rest, Harrison, Lindstrom, lone players, neither of whom has kind of set the world alight this season. McNeil is still working his way back to fitness, and I think there's a question as to where McNeil fits in when you've got Ndiaye on the left, because that's probably where you play McNeil. So there's an awful lot to be done. We keep saying this, there's an awful lot to be done, but I would like to expand the conversation beyond merely the strikers to look at the attacking positions in general. And I think more or less across the board in the final third, Everton need more. Moyes will know that. Moyes will have already come to that conclusion too.
Just on the Delap stuff in particular, like you said, like everyone's gonna like him, and I think Chelsea, United, like a lot of the top clubs have been linked to him as well. Like I saw, like Joe wrote a piece last week, sort of saying like why you should consider Everton as an option. And I think. Listen, I mean, obviously we're going to say this as Evertonians who know we need a striker, but I think we would be a really good move for him in that sense, because coming up and playing for a promoted team and then jumping to a team like Chelsea. Look at Jackson at the weekend. Like, he's not perfect, is he? But you can see he's a good forward who's got a lot of different attributes, and he rusts people around. And he can do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
You could easily be in a situation there if he went to a team like Chelsea or in Europe, or even someone like Villa, if they don't sell Watkins or whatever. Like, you could easily be on the bench, couldn't he? Whereas if you come to Everton, you're the main fella every week. You're playing at a new ground. You are like going to be the poster boy going into that new stadium effectively. And then, like, say if Everton done his release clause and then put another release clause in his contract, which say for like 60 million or something like that, and then he can move on again in a few years. Like, I don't think it's impossible. Like, it will be really, really, really hard, I think, to get that deal done. But I think there's definitely a way you could sell it to him, in the sense that, don't get too carried away. Although I imagine for any player, if a team in the Champions League comes calling, you're going to back your own ability. But I think there is a way Everton could sell this cleverly to him. It's just what he thinks he wants and where he thinks his career's at, I suppose.
Could a club like Nottingham Forest be that sort of happy medium? And look,
exactly,
even until a couple of years ago, players would have always joined Everton over Nottingham Forest. But right now, still in with the hunt of Champions League. If they don't get Champions League, they'll be in the Europa. And it just looks like, I mean, a 1 year is always injured, perennially injured. And Wood, as good as he's been this season, is advancing in years. He's getting older. So he, to me, would like suit stylistically that Forest team down to the ground in the way he plays. And I'm by no means saying I want him to go there, but I'm just saying that's an example of if the lad doesn't want to go right to the top straight away, there are other incremental stages, maybe without the peril of Everton, without the uncertainty of Everton. And Forest may well be one of them. I'm sure clubs on the continent as well, and Leverkusen and teams like that before have been that kind of bridging point, haven't they? So I think that's an incredibly tough ask, but I think it does. The wide direction of travel is clear, regardless of whether Delap joins or not. That's a market Everton need to look in. We've said this a lot on the show, but that's a market Everton need to look in over the summer as well.
Yeah, good to see they're ambitious and they're like looking at him, but like you said, it could be a tough ask. So maybe not want to take too long or focus too much attention on it if they don't get good. Good feedback from it early on. We'll finish up, Paddy, by talking about a couple of off the pitch things that have happened over the course of the last few weeks. So Everton announced, the Freaking Group, I suppose, announced two new figures joining the ownership group. One is Christopher Sarofim, who, according to the club statement, brings 40 years worth of experience in investment, fund management, and philanthropy to Everton and its ownership group. So that's good. And the other one is a NBA legend who, to be fair, I'd not heard of at all until Everton announced this. Jason Kidd, who's the current head coach of the Dallas Mavericks and was apparently an excellent player, although I don't know anything about the NBA really, so I couldn't really vouch for that. But two big names, Paddy. One from obviously the world of sports, one from his own individual field, who's got a lot of money. But what do you think this sort of suggests about the Freaking Group and what they want to do? Because before we started this call, I effectively asked you, is this two famous rich people who want to get involved in a football club effectively? And you sort of played that down a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, you obviously got to get through the PR spin that accompanies these announcements, but certainly my understanding of the situation is that Freaking Group don't really need cash right now. What they wanted, having spoken to lots of different potential investors, was people who could come on board, take some equity in Roundhouse Capital, the vehicle through which they own Everton, and then add some form of expertise. So in the case of Sarofim, he's a billionaire his family, I think, via Sarofim and Co. owns, manages $30 billion worth of assets. So he is seen as somebody who has access to capital. Should Everton need it further down the line, will be able to help them raise funding if needs be, and will provide some form of financial and commercial expertise. So he's taken on a small stake in Roundhouse, not in the club, but in Roundhouse, the ownership vehicle. You've then got Jason Kidd, who's taken on an even lower percentage still in Roundhouse, current head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. And I think the thinking behind that is that, well, first of all, he's Texas-based, as Sarofim is as well, as TFG are. So all these people kind of knew each other before. They mixed in the same circles, and sometimes that's how these deals get done. But Kidd is there more for his sporting sense, his sporting pedigree. And I don't think he'll be there every day telling David Moyes which subs he should make in the 68th minute. But he will certainly share, as per the club statement, kind of high performance insights and tips. And I think he'll be a little bit of a sounding board for TFG as well. So part of this is raising Everton's profile in the US. Most people, certainly in the UK or who aren't in Texas, won't necessarily have heard of Sarofim. But Kidd is a big name in the NBA, as you've pointed out, particularly now through his association with the Dallas Mavericks, and was a great player before. And Everton do want to continue to make headway in the US market. They have the summer tour coming up, but they want to continue to grow the club overseas as well. So I see that as part of this strand. I mean, it's not too hard to envisage kind of content strategies with Dallas Mavericks at various points. I mean, they've already put out a video. I don't know if you've seen it, Matt, but they put out a video of, quite a funny video, I thought, of Jason Kidd in the FA Cup 1995 jersey, the one Everton won the FA Cup in, obviously. And
it felt a very Josh Wonder, once Everton has touched you statements to me. That it was a little bit contrived, wasn't it? I thought.
Yes. I wonder how spontaneous it was or otherwise, to be honest. But I mean, the Josh Wonder one did feel very chat GPT, didn't it? It was almost like, we need to cram a reference in here to Alan Ball. And I was like,
please. Yeah.
I love the idea. I mean, look, Alan Ball is a legend of the game over here. But I love the idea that Josh Wonder kind of knew who Alan Ball was and was able to just recite these quotes from Everton legends. And clearly there's an eye on the US market here and an eye on making headway stateside, and that's smart. I mean, Everton do have a sizable US fan base. We've seen it ourselves. You look at the number of supporters club stateside, the amount of people, we get the figures, don't we, each week on where people are listening from, and the amount of different states that are listening to our show. So that audience is there, but I think the idea is that it continues to grow, and that's what the club want to do. So this is not kind of big major news, is it, as far as kind of the future of the club is concerned? But I think it does to some extent make sense across the board in like a commercial, financial way with Sarofim, and then in kind of a sporting sense with Kidd, and a kind of promotion brand sense with Kidd as well. So an interesting one. And again, it's kind of a sign that these are people that have got their ducks in order, and they do things quickly.
Yeah, interesting character, Jason Kidd. I don't want to go into it too much. Well, this sums it up. He has got his own ESPN article, which is titled "History of Jason Kidd's Past Incidents," and some of them on there are pretty awful, to be honest. Which is worth saying. But anyone who wants to know a bit more about them, like it's all in there. But yeah, certainly had a pretty eventful, colourful, and at times pretty bad life in the last few years. So people who want to know a little bit more about that, do go and check that out. But yeah, you mentioned, Paddy, anyway, just to finish off about this US Summer Tour. We've got news that we are going to Chicago officially. We have booked our flights, and we're going to be going out for the match where Everton... Is that Everton Bournemouth?
Yes.
So we will see us lose in a heartbreaking way to Bournemouth in a different continent, which will be interesting. But no, we are going to go out there for the US Summer Tour. We have got our flights. We've been chatting to, forgive me, the person who runs AJ Hudson's. Who's that, Paddy?
Oh, yeah. So we will look to do some form of live event, won't we?
Yeah.
And hopefully in conjunction with North American Toffees and Chicago Evertonians. I mean, I'm sure people will know that AJ Hudson's is the base for Chicago Evertonians. So nothing's confirmed yet. We don't have that definitely as a venue, but I'm pretty sure we'll go to AJ Hudson's at some point.
Yeah.
Just to sample it and see people, maybe even on game day. And then we will also, hopefully, in the coming weeks, have plans to announce on our live show. It'll be great to see as many people over there as possible. So I'm really excited about this on like a load of different levels because I've never been to Chicago, and then tying it in with everything that's going on with Everton over the summer should be really cool.
Yeah, Mark Mosey's coming along as well. I'm sure fans of Mose will be delighted of that.
Yeah.
And Rob Vera's going to be knocking around too. So he can be our US guide. But yeah, he has constantly told us that Chicago is the best place in America in the summer. So yeah, we have taken him up on his offer in that sense. So,
but also, if you disagree strongly with that, then feel free to send us a
it's too late. It's too late now because we booked it. We're going. So
I mean, we booked it. I'm very happy to be going. But
yeah.
people in the
I hope we don't get loads of people email us now being like, actually, lads, it's awful. Like, don't come here in the summer. Come in the winter instead. You'd be better off going to New Jersey or Atlanta. But I'm sure that won't be the case. But yeah, if you're going to be there and you've got any plans or anything you think we should do or recommendations, do get in touch with us. Everton Byline @gmail.com. Just before we finish off, Paddy, your favourite section, as ever, is the squad number section. I mean, we are getting towards slim pickings on these now. Have you got anything to say about Felipe Mattioni, Connor Grant, Hope Akpan, or Lawrence Wilson?
I mean, I'll be honest now, I've not got an awful lot to say about any of them. Mattioni was on trial, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he didn't play for us.
I'm going to say, and this is testing my knowledge without having prepped, I'm going to say that he was a right back.
He was a right back.
At one point, was he Brazilian and once played for Juve?
No, he played for Milan. That's a great knowledge, that.
Right.
So, I don't know if he ever played for them, but he was there. So his career path was Milan, Mallorca, Espanyol, Everton, Doncaster. And then he went, that's a weird one. He went to Boa EC and then played a lot in South America as well.
He had loads of injury problems.
Yeah.
He had loads of injury problems. So he would have fit in really well at Goodison, along with the other sick notes. Not much else to say on him, really, to be honest.
No. The thing I vividly remember about him was I was playing FIFA quite a lot at that point, and whenever he started a new career with Everton, you'd go through one year and like look at the squad. I'd always be like goalkeepers first, and then like right back, centre back, left back. So he was always the first player I put on the transfer list when I started the new Everton career FIFA mode, because you should go through and try to get rid of all the players you didn't want to get as much money for them as possible. And poor Felipe was always lashed on the transfer list first out of all the players.
What was his rating?
I think he was about like 71, but I won't be able to tell you that with any certainty. I'd always get about like £500,000 for him, I think. So yeah, which ball out in reality when he went to Doncaster. I don't imagine we got any fee for him or whatever, but
no.
There we go. But yeah, not got loads to say about the others. Hope Akpan was relatively highly rated, wasn't he, at one point? But
yeah, central midfielder, played in the lower leagues, did all right for all intents and purposes, but never, I think he was ever really in with a chance of making the grade permanently at Everton. He'd often feature right at the end of match day programs, wouldn't he? And obviously, given the number, and would occasionally be on the bench. He was in and around some of those Europa League squads. when they had dead rubbers, but again, not necessarily one that we can write home about.
You played 4 times for Nigeria, just read here. Would not have known that. Didn't think you would have got to that level. But
he had a decent career, lower leagues and in the championship.
Yeah, Blackburn, Bradford.
Yeah,
he played for SJK in Finland for a bit. Left them in 2021, and then he signed for Atherton, Lebanon Rovers on non-contract terms in January 2022, and he moved to Widnes for a bit in March 2022. So yeah, a proper journeyman in that sense.
You made it sound like he moved house to Widnes there. I don't know why. Picturing him decamping from Finland to
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the big removals van rocking up. But yeah, that's it from us this week anyway. Cheers to Paddy for helping me through that one today. If you want to donate, the link is in the description as well. Hey, great cause here in the city of Liverpool. Does so much wonderful work for kids across the region. So the link will be in the description for that. We are sponsored as ever by the Bridewell. If you watch us on YouTube, do leave us a comment, do hit like, do hit subscribe so you get notified whenever our videos go up. And if you're listening to us on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere else, do leave us a rating and do leave us a review. Yeah, we'll be back again next week to talk about the penultimate game at Goodison Park. Oh my word, against Ipswich Town. And then, yeah, no doubt plenty of other things going on as well. But cheers to Paddy, up the toffees. We'll speak to you again soon.